Hey, what's up? My name is Elvin Madera, and in this video, I will be talking about long span in steel construction. Now, just to give you an overview, a span itself is the distance between two intermediate supports in a structure. So, for example, this would be considered a span from end to end in this particular structure. Now, these long spans are necessary in large structures, as you can see in the image. And these are achieved in steel using enhanced beams, rigid steel frames, trusses, and other types of systems. So now let's dive into enhanced beam. So the beams without the enhancement are basically the horizontal members that just support the weight of a given floor, ceiling, or roof of a building. And now the enhanced beams basically come with the conventional framing that just stretches the beams using long span steel bar joists, plate girders, and castellated beams. And I will dive into plate girders and castellated beams. Now, the steel bar joists are, as you can see on the right image, right there, that's what it looks like. Now, let's talk about plate girders. Now here we have the plate girders, and these girders themselves are basically just steel beams that are used in building bridges. As you can see in the background, these plate girders are used in the bridge, and they're also used in frameworks for a building, a large building. And these are all examples of how the plate girders may look like. So you can see all over the slide. And here on the far right corner, we see how we have a flange on the top and on the bottom. And those are basically like the main structures of the plate girders. And these are produced by welding steel plates and angles together to make a beam capable of much longer spans, which is why they're used in large buildings and bridges. Now, let's get into castellated beams. So here we have the castellated beams, which are produced by flame cutting a wide flange beam in a zigzag pattern, slipping the cut section over and welding the cut sections together. So those are basically three steps, and let me just show you those three steps. So the wide flange beam is basically illustrated by this image over here, as you would see, and the cut sections are these zigzag patterns that we see all over the beam. And when they say slipping the cut section over, that just basically means that this peak and this bottom peak basically join forces, which the end result would look something like this. And of course, you would have to weld those peaks together. And this is not done for fun, because these castellated beams basically increase the depth and the strength of the beams. Now let's move on to those rigid steel frames that I talked about earlier. So in this slide, I provided you with a lot of images that are used as examples of rigid steel frames. And let's just dive into it. These rigid steel frames consist of welded plates, angles, as we can see over here in this image I'm pointing at, beams like these, and other structural elements. The frames themselves are set up in a row to enclose a rectangular space, and this is kind of like the main use of it. These rigid steel frames are used to enclose these rectangular spaces in industrial buildings. As we can see over here, this will be the entire rectangular space. And they are spanned by steel purlins that support the roof and girts. And these steel purlins would be placed along the beams. And that's basically what rigid steel frames are. So now let's dive into trusses. So these trusses are basically the framework that mainly supports a roof or a bridge, and of course other structures. And these trusses are manufactured from steel structural shapes to produce units that are light in weight, especially compared to plate girders that I talked about previous slides. And trusses have many different designs that you can use, kind of like hip scissors or scissors, many different designs that you can use with trusses. And these are all the examples that we might see in how the trusses are placed or used. So now I'll dive into these other long span steel systems. And the other long span steel systems are basically spanned with dome steel cable systems or tensile structures. And as we can see in this image, this would be an arena. This would be a stadium that has the dome. This one has the dome too. And this is on airport terminal. And this would be a train terminal. And that's basically it. Now let's move on to the final slide. So just to wrap it up, I talked about four main topics on long span and steel construction. And these were the enhanced beams, the rigid steel frames, trusses, and the other types of steel systems. And I hope you understood and learned something new. Once again, my name is Edwin Madera, and this was another one.